Samantha Peterson, Marketing Manager at RM Young Company. Today, I have the incredible honor of speaking with Cyrena Arnold, an acclaimed meteorologist whose impressive career includes serving as Director of Meteorology in two of the most extreme weather regions in the world, Alaska and Mount Washington. Beyond her work in meteorology, Cyrena has traveled the country inspiring students with her passion for STEM, showing the next generation just how exciting science, technology, engineering, and math can be. As if that weren't enough, Cyrena is also a two-time published author of children's books, including the Weather Story and her latest release, The Hurricane Story, which just came out a few months ago. And to top it all off, she was crowned Mrs. New Hampshire in 2022. Cyrena, I am absolutely thrilled to have this opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to this. So I guess, can you start by telling us what drew you to the field of meteorology and inspired your journey into STEM?
Yeah, absolutely. So this all started when I was about 5 years old. So I had moved from outside of the country to the US, and where I was born and raised was in the Southern Caribbean, where it's the desert islands. They don't even get hurricanes. The weather is actually quite boring. And we moved to Denver, Colorado, where the weather is anything but boring. And when I was about 5 years old, a severe thunderstorm came through, and there was this pouring rain and hail and thunder and lightning, all these things that I hadn't ever seen before, and strong winds. And then a funnel cloud formed and a tornado. And I stood in the doorway of my house and watched this tornado just go across the field. And it's like a switch flipped in my entire life at that point. And from that point on, I have just been completely and utterly fascinated with the weather. And I've pursued it. Every science fair project in like high school was on the weather, and I did all the science fairs, and just knew that that's what my life was going to be.
Wow, that is really cool. That must have been crazy to see a tornado in real life like that. So you've worked in two of the most extreme weather condition environments in the world, right? Alaska and Mount Washington.
Yeah.
What were some of the most memorable and challenging moments that you experienced while working in those environments?
Yeah, I mean, the weather was always really amazing and extreme. Transportation in both places is a major challenge, and I mean a major challenge. And that was unique and interesting in itself, but really probably the most interesting things that I can think of are in Alaska. There was one day where I had to work at a remote site, and I was installing a weather station. And so I didn't have anything there. And so pack up the chopper. It's in the winter. We're loading the helicopter with everything. I get dropped off at this really remote location. I'm laying all my gear so like the prop wash doesn't blow all my stuff away. And as the helicopter's flying away, I go, oh, that's cold. Like, that's really cold. And I didn't know how cold it was, but I knew it was bad. And so I'm working on installing this weather station, and it had a precipitation gauge that measured through weight because it's too cold to do liquid. So it was a precip gauge that measured weight and needed like antifreeze and mineral oil and all the stuff that you stack up on it to measure so it doesn't evaporate. The snow falls into it year round, and it weighs the difference and can measure that way. And so you put a -50 rated antifreeze in it. And so I'm working on this, and I'm about 2 or 3 hours into the installation, and I go to grab my jug of antifreeze, and it's solid. And
wow.
And I was like, well, that's a lot. That's pretty darn cold. So
yeah,
that was crazy in Alaska. Like, I don't know how cold it was that I was working in, but we know it was at least at the warmest -50, since my antifreeze was frozen solid that was rated for -50. That was crazy. And then on Mount Washington, the two craziest things there, it's just three. The transportation is wild. Getting up and down that mountain, it's hit or miss. It can take a long period of time. Sometimes, as you're plowing after a big snowstorm, we're going up on the lee of the mountain. And so, sometimes there's avalanches. And there was one time our snowcat caused a small avalanche, and we got trapped temporarily. Watching the wind speeds up there are just crazy, knowing that in the wintertime, every other day wind speeds reach hurricane force. Every third day, triple digit wind speeds up on top of Mount Washington in the winter. So just crazy, crazy winds. And with that come crazy wind chill temperatures as well. So wind chills, -80s, -90s I've experienced up there. But then the rime ice, like the rime ice accretion, this feathery type of ice that forms from supercooled water drops that's frequent up there. can form and grow at rates of 6, 8, 10, 12 inches per hour. And seeing this feathery, light, icy substance cover everything, it almost just looks like you're in a different world. It's like you're in a scene out of a movie up there. So those would have to be the craziest ones.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I would survive that. I complain when it's like 30 degrees out. I don't think I could survive that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. But I'll tell you what, that really tests that saying. It really tests it.
Holy cow. And how long were you at Mount Washington?
I worked at Mount Washington for about 2.5 years. And I did the work in Alaska for about 6 before that.
Man, that's crazy. Would you go back?
Oh man, probably. Though I mean, I was so much younger when I did it, and now I've got a family, and so I did it at just the right time in my life and in my career. I would still go back, but it would be a lot harder to do, and I don't know if I could tolerate it as well as I did back then either. Right? Like I was young and dumb. It was great.
That's really cool. Ah, awesome. How did working in such intense conditions shape your understanding of meteorology and the importance of accurate weather instrumentation?
Oh man. I mean, obviously there's like a life and property aspect to it too, to this, where, you know, people need to know what the forecast is going to be so they can prepare themselves. They can prepare their homes. They can consider their transportation. If they do agriculture and deal with animals, you know, animals aren't getting a forecast. If you know it's going to be bad, they need to make preparations for them. So there's a lot of that, but a lot of the work that I was doing in Alaska was with prospective facilities, power plants, mining facilities, quarries, different stuff like that. And so everything we did had to be to EPA guidance and specifications, and that's some of the most stringent and hardest to meet. And so we absolutely needed the most accurate information when we were up there, the most accurate sensors, because with all of these things, with the modeling we were doing, and the modeling we see today was just our generic forecast models that anybody can find in their free weather app. We have a saying, and that is, you know, you put good in to get good out. And so if you're not getting the most accurate data and information to go into those, you're going to get crap on the other side. And so the forecast models are really, really good today and are getting better for many reasons. But one of them is because of the accuracy of the information that we're putting into them. And it's just absolutely, absolutely critical. People really have no idea how important it is.
Yeah, that's for sure. So how would you say that RM Young sensors have played a role in your research and forecasting and collecting that accurate data?
Yeah, they were critical. And so we used them very frequently when we worked in Alaska, and we were working in incredibly harsh locations. And so we needed equipment that was going to work, because not only does the information we're putting, you know, that we're collecting with the sensors and the data we're collecting need to be accurate, but we also had to meet uptime and accuracy data percentages. So it's like you needed to have 99% data recovery. And so in a year that's 365 days, you can lose 3.5 days of data in an entire year, and that is it. And we are working on the Alaska tundra. There's no power outlets there. All the power for the stations have to be generated through wind and solar power. You know, there's not just an outlet on the tundra we can plug everything into. And so we're sending back data through the Iridium satellite networks and all that. And so it's like the one thing we needed to not worry about was the accuracy of the data. And we knew we needed it to work in some of the most harsh conditions possible. And so RM Young was always like our default choice, like, because we knew that what they would make would last in these really, really hard to gather conditions. Because even if we notice there's a problem and I could get on a plane that afternoon or that evening to fly up, it would easily be 36 to 48 hours before I would be able to get to these remote sites if the weather cooperated, if there was room on the flights, if everything went well. And so we just didn't have any room for error. And so the RM Young sensors always were really good and reliable in that regard.
Wow. Did you have to have a lot of backup sensors for redundant data?
Sometimes we did, you know, so we always had we had waiting for us in Alaska. You know, we always had extra thermometers, extra anemometers, extra hygrometers, extra everything, you know, because you just never know when something was going to fail. And we had to become really good at fixing it ourselves. So I can't even tell you how many hundreds of times like I have taken apart and reassembled the wind monitors that you guys have. Like I have replaced potentiometers on those things and done all that work because we have to, because we just don't have that flexibility in the field. So that's the other thing is with those sensors, they're so easy to work on in remote locations. And so not only do we have extra sensors, but sometimes extra parts of the sensors, because maybe the whole sensor isn't wrong, but the potentiometer is on the fritz and we could tell it's not working as well as it should be. So, which is just kind of, I mean, these are the harshest conditions in the entire world. And so it's bound to happen, but it's great because other types of sensors wouldn't even be able to collect data in these locations. And these totally did, but you know, they still needed working on from time to time, but they were easy to do when we needed to do it.
That's awesome. We love to hear that.
Yeah.
What were your go-to instruments that you used?
Oh boy.
I'm assuming the Alpine wind monitor.
Yeah, Alpine wind monitor was huge, especially on top of Mount Washington. That's really the only like bladed anemometer, and anemometer wind vane combination together that would work up there at all. I mean, and that is the harshest place on the world. There'd be times where even, you know, that would freeze up there. But if it freezes up there, I mean, it's like, that's literally the worst environment and the hardest one. So we would put that up there frequently. And definitely at these remote locations in Alaska, we would need the Alpine ones because you would have all of the different rime ice and ice accretion and stuff happen on these. And just that, you know, the little bit of changes with the different color they are and the way that they're painted and all the little changes they made just make the Alpine one work so much better in these harsh and extreme locations. Data recovery was much, much higher on those for us. Like I said, we got that 99% criteria we had to meet. With the Alpine monitors, we were definitely able to meet that more so than with the standard wind monitors.
Yeah, that's very cool. Share an example of a situation where RM Young instruments provided critical data that made a difference in your work. Maybe a specific moment where you really needed data right now, or something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've got a ton of examples. The best one that comes to mind is Superstorm Sandy. So everybody in the meteorological community remembers Sandy. Hurricane went extratropical. You know, still acts a lot like a hurricane to everyone on land, though they don't know the meteorological differences. But major storm that hit the northeastern United States. And with that, I was on top of Mount Washington, and where we monitor our wind speeds is on kind of the northwest corner of the mountain. And with Hurricane Sandy, we knew we were going to get strong southeasterly winds. And southeasterly is also the place where the world record wind speed of 231 miles an hour on top of Mount Washington was also measured from. And so with the storm coming in and looking at the pressure gradient and some different things, we were like, wow, we actually have a run at maybe meeting or, you know, getting close to that world record again. And that doesn't happen very often up there. So very last minute, we said, let's put up a weather station on the southeast side. And with collaboration through Plymouth State University, we put a very small, like a wind monitor, the RM Young wind monitor up on the southeast side, and put it on like a tripod and tied that sucker down. And we installed it at about 99 mile an hour sustained winds. And we did it and had that going. And it was collecting data for us at a second location and at very short notice. Like I said, we had about less than 24 hours notice from the time we decided we wanted to do this to being able to pull it off. And so having that RM Young wind monitor up there was incredible and gave us data for a long period of time until it was hit by debris. Unfortunately, wind speeds were about 140 miles an hour when debris hit it and the monitor broke. No fault of its own. It got taken out by other forces. But it was able to help. It was super helpful and helped us capture some data that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to capture.
That is so cool. Wow. Man, that must have been crazy standing up there in that high of winds doing that. That would be really difficult.
It was, and with all of the blowing rain and everything, one of the favorite things, not only was I trying to install a weather station 99 mile an hour sustained winds, which is really difficult because if we slipped or fell or dropped something, it was very far away. So there were a couple times we got blown away and you have to like crawl back. But the craziest thing was when we got done installing that, I took my boots off. I went inside, took my boot off, and I could feel all the water. And I took my boot off and I could pour the water out of my boot from the driving. And I had full rain gear on. But because of the high wind speeds and the amount of liquid in those types of storms, the water was literally everywhere, and I could pour it out of my boot when I got inside.
That's nuts. That must have been a big adrenaline rush.
Yes,
That's
yes,
really
it
cool.
was. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so can you tell us a little bit about your Mrs. New Hampshire title and how that came to be? Because that's kind of wild. Not many people can say that.
No, no, they can't. And you know what? It was really fun. And so what I did, so I had written the weather story and put that out there. And the year that I had published it was 2020, COVID year. So all of the book signings and everything I had lined up did not come to pass because of COVID. I had wrapped it up like right in March of 2020. So I was looking for some other ways to help spread the word about it. And I'm always a big fan of showing how STEM is in our life everywhere. And it doesn't matter who you are, male, female, young, old, like we all need STEM. We all use it and it's really important. And so I heard about this pageant system, the Mrs. America pageant system. And I was like, it'd be really cool, like to, represent New Hampshire and show the world, that women can be smart and authors and do all this crazy stuff. So I threw my hat in the bag. And next thing I knew, I was Mrs. New Hampshire, and I got to compete for Mrs. America in 2022. And I'm like, this is wild.
Wow.
So it was fun. It was a good platform to be able to share my work and share my passions and show other girls like you can literally be whatever you want to be, if you put your mind to it. But the most fun thing was is that we had to do, and you're gonna get a kick out of this, we had to dress up as we had to have a state costume. And so that's how it, like, during the actual competition opened up, everyone had a state costume. And I just decided to be Mount Washington. But I was like, how do I represent it like meteorologically? And so I got this like white flowy skirt that looked like clouds. Our parapet towers painted red, so I got like a red long sleeve thing on. And I held the RM Young wind monitor as I walked out on stage with this thing like spinning, dressed to the nines, trying, looking like Mount Washington. I don't think anyone has ever walked out on a stage holding a wind monitor in their entire life. And I got to do it. And I got to do it on like the stage that like Elvis performed on like 700 and some times in his career when he had residency in Vegas and all this. It was just wild. But oh my God, it was just such a cool and amazing moment to, like, if you would have told 8-year-old me that was going to happen, I'm not even sure what I would have said. But it was the coolest thing to walk out on that stage representing my state and representing STEM and science, carrying an RM Young wind monitor because I was Mount Washington, man. It was cool.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment, and also a huge accomplishment for us because we got to be on the stage with you. That's super cool.
I know. I'll send you a picture. Wow. Maybe we can like pop it up or something, and
that would be really cool.
See it because it was wild. It was wild.
How amazing! Oh, that's super cool. Thank you for sharing that. So can you tell us a little bit about your books, the weather story and the hurricane story, and what inspired you to write them?
Yes, I can. And foolishly, I don't think I have any copies of the weather story right by my desk, which is shame on me. How did I pull that one off? But that's okay. So the weather story. So my sister-in-law came to me and said, hey, our daughter, so my niece, is really scared of thunderstorms. You're a meteorologist. Can you help her? And I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I know anytime there's fear, education is always what combats fear. If there's fear about anything, education is always the key and the answer. So I'm like, you know what? Kid needs a couple good books on weather. So I went to the bookstore and I started flipping through the kids' books on weather. And I was appalled is a strong word, but I was not pleased with what I found out there. Like, these are not good. They oversimplified it. They weren't accurate, or they're just did, it's like thunder is God stomping his feet. No, let's talk about the science of it. Thunder is hot expanding air that comes from lightning. And so I didn't find what I wanted. And being an overachieving entrepreneurial someone who's like has a fear of downtime, I guess. I don't know. I was like, well, I'll write one. And so I did. So I wrote the weather story really for her and to help other kids as well. And it explains why the weather happens. It explains how wind is pressure differentials and what are pressure differentials, what is precipitation, what is thunder, lightning. It also includes, some safety information. And so it's unlike any other book out there. And I also illustrated it myself with all these like hand done watercolor paintings. It took me 11 months to do the whole book. And I was just so super proud of it, and I loved it. And so I self-published it, and it was a huge success. I was really surprised with how well received it was and how much people liked it. And I was getting pictures of kids dressing up as like Francis Fox on Halloween, or like come to school as your favorite character day, which, goodness gracious, like all I wanted was kids to be educated and understand the weather and understand science. They don't have to love it like I do. No one's going to love it like I do, but I wanted them to get it, right? Like I wanted them to understand it. And it was well received. And so a publisher reached out to me and said, hey, we want to do more. And so we did. And so the second one that came out this year is the hurricane story. And so they hired an illustrator, Landon Goldsboro, who was phenomenal, illustrated this whole book. And this one talks all about how hurricanes form and function and hurricane safety. And so talking about, it's a children's book, and we're talking about condensation nuclei in the center of raindrops and how the Sahara sand and dust forms, but it's in a way that kids can understand. Once again, the scientific accuracy is just such a key part of it for me. And so it talks about how they are tropical depression and tropical storm and the winds and what it means to evacuate and what you need to evacuate. And also setting a real expectation for children about like when you come home again, it may look different if you've had to evacuate. There's going to be damage, your swing may be broken or your house may be damaged. And I think it's really important to be honest with kids. We don't have to scare them, but let's be honest with them and set some realistic expectations about what's going on. So, and then in the back, it's got like a glossary. We've got the Saffir-Simpson scales and talking about the differences between typhoons and cyclones. So it's just a good educational piece. And so those are my two books and why I did them.
That is really cool. I have a copy of the weather story. I bought it for my two young children. We read it at bedtime a lot, and they love it. And it's helped them understand thunder and not be so scared too. And so, I was really excited to talk to you about it, and hoping you can maybe autograph my book for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan, and I can't wait to get the hurricane story. I'm really excited. We're going to be picking that up soon because I know the kids will love it. So
amazing.
Congratulations. I didn't know you did the illustrations and that you watercolored that. That's really cool.
Yeah, that was a very tedious process. So it was nice. It was kind of like it was different having an illustrator for the second book. Because the first one was a lot of work, and so time-wise it makes it very difficult, and I'm just a lot busier now than I was previously. So that's nice, but also I enjoyed it. Like it was a long process, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a labor of love.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That must feel like such a huge accomplishment. Like that's amazing. You should be really proud of yourself.
Thank you. It was never on my bucket list to like write a book. I'm the last person on this. I'm like left brain. Like I am not like, so it was very funny that came on like that it happened. Cause that was never in my future.
Well, obviously it was. So I guess kind of going along with kids and STEM, what advice would you give to young people who are interested in pursuing a career in meteorology or STEM?
Yeah, excellent question. And I do have the privilege of being able to travel to schools all across New England right now, talking about STEM and my path to STEM. And I think the most important message I try to leave kids with is two different things. One is if you love what you do, you're never going to spend a day at work. And I tell them, it's like, it's still a job. I still have days that I don't love, but I have less of them than other people do because I really love what I'm doing. So find something that drives you, that's your passion. And it may not even be a STEM career, but find something that really interests you and motivates you. What's not, don't ask yourself who you want to work for when you grow up, but like, what problem do you want to solve? And I make sure kids really try to think about that. Like, what difference do you want to make? What problem do you want to solve? And that should lead to finding that passion and doing that. The other thing I tell them and make sure kids understand is it's going to be really hard. like really hard. So here I am, this meteorology obsessed kid since I was 5 years old, drew tornadoes all over everything, was really good at school. And then I hit 7th grade pre-algebra and was failing it. And I knew, excuse me, I knew a degree in meteorology was a degree in mathematics and physics. I knew that when I was in 7th grade. And here I am failing pre-algebra. And it's like I saw all my dreams like fading away and falling away. And it was really hard for me and I struggled. And it turns out that that's the age that a lot of kids start to struggle with math. And it's at that point kids decide if they're good at math or bad at math or not. They decide that. And girls more so than boys. So I was really lucky to have a good support group of like teachers, tutors, my parents and all that who helped me get through it. And I got through it. And then I passed pre-algebra, great. And then it's like another math class would come along and another one. And this happened all the way through college. I had to learn how to learn. I had to learn what was a good learning technique for me. And math did not come easy or natural for me at all. And so calculus 1 was horrible. Calc 2 was great. Calc 3, oh my God, I'm back in, hell again. Calc 4, fine. And then differential equations and linear algebra. And it's like, and then all the numbers disappear in the math, right? Then there's not numbers anymore when you get to a certain level. And it's like some classes were good for me and others, I just struggled. And it seemed not fair that all my friends in college are out partying and having a good time. And here I am like with my nose crammed in a book, studying my butt off so I can pass because I was having such a hard time. So I always felt like I had to work a lot harder at it than other people did. And I remind kids that that could very well happen to them. And that's where you have to dig back into that passion. And so you got to figure out if it really drives you and is really worth it, like it did for me with meteorology, you will find a way through it because the dropout rate in college was insane. My freshman class had like 180, and I think they graduated 20 to 30 every year. That is an incredible drop-off rate. And a lot of the time it's the math that gets people. So you have to choose how hard you're willing to fight for it. And if it's not something you really love, you're not going to. So my 2 pieces of advice are 1, make sure you're really doing something that means a lot to you and you really know what difference you want to make in this world and what problems you want to solve. But also 2, know that it is not going to come easy and that that's okay.
Yeah, those are really good pieces of advice. Thank you. I'm going to take those to heart.
It works for everybody. I use it in parenting today, right? Like I got young kids. I mean, some days are not easy. And that's okay. Like it's, and especially with social media today, oh my God. And the kids today, it's like everything is instant gratification and social media. Everyone's life is in rose-colored glasses out there. And it's like, you know what? That's not real life. And I think it's going to be even harder for kids to understand that as social media grows.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Okay. Well, what's next for you? Are there any upcoming projects or adventures or advocacy efforts or anything you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I'm always doing the STEM programs, right? Like bringing my wind monitors with me and going into schools and doing some really fun things. And so most of the schools I visit too, we actually have them make their own anemometers using like cups and plates and straws and just like household items. We have them make them and I make them test them. So,
Cool.
I bring it and it's, oh my God, it's so much fun. And so continuing to do that type of a thing and talk with kids about it. I have a feeling Frances Fox is coming back for a 3rd adventure. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about that, but I think Frances Fox is going to take on another adventure here this year, which is pretty cool. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then I've also had some fun opportunities where like last year I was featured online on a YouTube series, Wired Tech Support, where I got to talk about severe weather. And I brought the wind monitor with me, by the way. So for the whole video, the whole Wired video, the wind monitor's right behind me talking about meteorology and storm chasing and stuff like that, my annual storm chasing trip that I do. But there's also going to be, I'm going to be a scientific expert on the History Channel for a show that they do called The Unbelievable, hosted by Dan Aykroyd. So there'll be a couple episodes where I get to be featured there. So it's fun. It's just, all these little stepping stones and continuations of how can I bring more weather awareness to the general public, help people understand what's going on in the environment around them in a way that they care about to help keep them safe. And also just sharing the good STEM word, getting the word out there about the importance of science, technology, engineering, math. And and just showing people how amazing and life-changing it could be.
Wow, that's amazing. You have a lot of exciting stuff going on.
It's
Super
fun.
cool. I can't wait to watch it all unfold. How exciting. It's gonna be a big year.
Yeah, it's really fun. I'm having a good time with it for sure. But I'll tell you what, like the support that I've gotten from RM Young before any of this happened, it was many, many years ago. If I could do the math in my head, it was like 5 or 6 years ago that RM Young was really generous and donated an entire weather station to my STEM program. And their weather stations are amazing. We are talking top quality, amazing sensors. And it was so great because as I go around and travel to these schools, I show kids how a precipitation gauge works in person, right? The tipping bucket rain gauge that I have. And so it's like, and it's all cut out.
Yeah.
Sorry, the blur is going to be weird. Maybe if I put it in front of me. And so like I literally pour water into the top of this in front of the kids and show how the tipping bucket works. We show how the anemometers work. We show like why a radiation shield is so important to a thermometer. And so it's little things like that that are amazing. And before all the media stuff took off in the books or whatever, it was cool because RM Young like supported my STEM outreach and what I was doing from day one. And that was really awesome. So in a lot of ways, I think I've got you guys to thank for helping to kick off this tidal wave that I've been riding.
Aw, well, thank you. It's truly an honor to be part of it, and it's been so exciting and fun watching you grow and just explode into this huge, massive force. This is amazing. I'm so happy for you. And I'm super excited that you're going to be at AMS in a couple weeks.
I am.
And yeah, and you're going to have your books in our booth, right? And do a book signing.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to be partnering with you at the show, and I get to meet you in person. I'm a little excited about that. And so that'll be really fun. So if you guys are at AMS, make sure you stop by booth 517, get your copy of the weather story, the hurricane story, and get it signed by the author, and see some super cool weather sensors. It's going to be really fun. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited about this little partnership that we've got going on and thing that we're doing. So it'll be great to be with you guys in your booth. And sharing these books. So yeah, definitely stop by and come get your signed copy and just check out all these RM Young sensors. They're amazing.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. And it was such a pleasure talking to you, Cyrena. Thank you so much for meeting with me and for being here and sharing about your story. It's so fascinating. I could listen to you talk all day. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you in a couple weeks.
I know. It's just around the corner too. So no, it's going to be great. I look forward to seeing you in New Orleans.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, you take care. Enjoy the rest of your holidays. And we'll chat soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.